If you miss a live session, you can go back at any time to watch on demand. Go to Watch Replays and click on the session that you want to view. Have you created your own event agenda in SwapCard? Visit the Agenda and Watch Replay tabs to add sessions that interest you to your own event. You can go back to My Event to revisit any bookmarked sessions, sponsors, and items. We want to make sure that you're connecting with our industry-leading sponsors. You can interact with them by visiting the Booths and the Sponsor tab. You can also bookmark sponsors or add items to your event to view later. Sponsors have uploaded extra materials for attendees. Make sure to visit sponsors that interest you to chat with one of their team members or save documents for later. We have dedicated meeting slots set up for break times between sessions. Continue the discussion by requesting meetings from others in the SwapCard platform. Schedule a meeting with another attendee or a sponsor by visiting their page. The panelists and speakers will be addressing your questions live during the stream. During the stream, use the question tab to ask your questions early in the presentation. Go to the poll tab to answer polls that will be discussed during the live stream. If you need help navigating SwapCard, please reach out to our team by mentioning @Parks Associates in the chat box or by contacting one of our team members via our company page.
We are so excited to welcome you to our 26th annual Connection Series. We are bringing industry leaders together to share a vision of the future of technology in the home. After 2 years of virtual events, we are also announcing the return of our in-person events in 2022. We hope you join us in May as we gather again for impactful sessions with insights from industry leaders and best-of-class research from Parks Associates analysts. Nothing beats the knowledge, conversations, and community that come from meeting in person. Throughout this year, we will gather and share Parks Associates' latest research on smart home devices and solutions for consumers. We survey 10,000 broadband households each quarter to provide the most reliable and accurate view of the market. The connected home has evolved from a high-end concept toward a mass market opportunity with incredible revenue potential. Today, several high-profile market disruptions are emerging as a result of broadband adoption, smartphone usage, and consumer expectations for connectivity solutions that provide a personalized experience. This year, Connections addresses the use cases and emerging business models that will successfully engage consumers and grow revenues in the converging IoT industries, including smart home, connected entertainment, and mobile ecosystems. Thank you again for joining us at Connections.
Hello, welcome to the first of our virtual editions of the Connections Conference Series. As always, we're bringing industry experts together to discuss the most important topics of the smart home space, and we're also bringing in our team from Parks Associates to contribute some of our own data and perspectives as well. I'm kicking things off today with a smart, short presentation, and then we'll transition into a panel where we'll discuss integration and the consumer experience. It's always a hot topic, but especially so this year with the Matter initiative on the horizon. Then after that, we'll have a fireside chat to continue in this theme, talking about integration and Matter as the head of marketing from the Connectivity Standards Alliance, Michelle Mandela-Freeman, joins us. Finally, we'll have an interactive panel discussing the latest in smart home devices and home systems. I also want to take a minute to thank our sponsors today. We wouldn't be able to host these events without your support. It's been a unique past couple years. We've had to adjust to doing things virtually, and it's awesome that people have been coming forward and helping us bring these events to this industry. So we want to thank Alarm.com, Cox Communities, Homebase, AirTies, Notion, Rapid Response, Schneider Electric, AmTrust Specialty Risk, and Gagion. Also want to thank our supporters who help us keep the industry connected and informed. They include the Dementia Society of America, Z-Wave Alliance, ESA, HomeGrid, Innovation Tech Today, ResTech Today, and the Monitoring Association. So thanks to everyone for working with us. Finally, I want to take a minute to address our calendar for the rest of the year. So this is the first virtual event, but we also have some in-person events coming up this year that I'm really excited about. So at the end of February, we have a smart energy event that's not listed here, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm heavily involved in that, so I'm excited for that one. But then also in May, we're going to be getting together in person here in Texas. So consider coming out to that event if you can make it in person. We also, if you're not able to come join us, you should also please be joining us at these other virtual events that you see here on the calendar. We're covering a variety of different topics in the connected home space. And finally, if this is the first time interacting with us, you should know that Parks Associates is an independent marketing research firm that specializes in emerging consumer technology. You'll see some of our research throughout the sessions today, and you'll hear some of our perspectives that we're drawing from our data and also from our industry knowledge. So if you have any needs for strategic decision-making, research help, or product planning, or even marketing in this space, please let us know, and we'll see what we can do for you. So kicking it off today, I want to just start by showing just the data we've been looking at these past couple of years to kind of catch us up. This is the first one of the year, so I want to make sure everyone's understanding what our perspective is on the trends. And what we see is overall adoption, purchase intention, and recent purchases, some of the biggest KPIs in the industry, are all up. These past 2 years have been hard for most industries, but the smart home has actually grown. Throughout all the health crises, social strife, economic volatility, supply chain volatility, and everything else, these groups were able to keep working and keep delivering products to the customers who were buying more and more. Some trends in the smart home accelerated during the pandemic, including multi-dwelling unit residents, who were the fast-growing segment in the past and have now really taken it to their own level, and also online retail. The pandemic obviously drove lots and lots of online buying, and that was certainly true in the smart home, as we saw that become a major channel. Another recent driver of growth is the decline in the product and service prices of the past couple of years. This is absolute necessity to attract mainstream buyers. So for example, we saw the average price of video doorbells, which is a big category, decline over $50 since 2017. It's part of the reason why it's a big category now. And in the face of this downward pressure on price, companies are taking a variety of new strategies to offer value to your products and services. Some are offering a range of devices at different price points. So for example, Amazon Ring, who is of course a big player in the doorbell market, offers a model that does the basics for $60, and then also a top of the line for $250. And that model has HD video and 3D motion detection. So this is high-level analytics and also high-level components, as well as built-in Alexa functionality that greets people at the door for you. Wise actually has made a whole business out of this value segment, right? So they offer products across every part of the connected home at a low price. And Canary actually has pro monitoring at $10, which is really impressive when you consider ADT is up at $20. So there's opportunities for companies to find edges with regards to selling price and reaching a value segment of the customers. The past couple years has not only seen a growth in adoption across categories, but also an increase of average number of devices in the household. Consumers have continued to add devices to their collection, and that's enabled a bunch of new use cases as they use the devices together. However, if you think about it, the growing complexity of these smart home device collections can create challenges for consumers who are tempted to navigate all the various apps and ecosystems and standards that their devices use. It's also good to remember that the multi-device owner is a large majority of the owners. So that's our turquoise shape there. That's most of the customers that are shopping for smart home devices today already own a bunch of other smart home devices. So it would benefit those consumers greatly and the industry greatly to have a good integrated solution and or offer a whole smart home solution that would allow these consumers to use their big bundle of devices more easily. So we have a bunch of conversations about that today. Interoperability and partnerships are a major opportunity for creating these great experiences for the connected consumers. Also, when thinking about all these devices at home, they want to use it with a single app. And we, according to our research, we see that 9 of 10 actual owners say that they want to use these devices all one app. But how that actual app works, that's kind of up for debate. So about half of them are saying they want to feel like an expert. They want to be able to customize their own experience. They want to really feel control for how their smart home works. Then the other half say they want to just set it and forget it. They don't want to feel like working with their devices is a job. They want it to be automated and just work on its own. So going forward, in addition to deciding about price points, as we were discussing earlier, smart home players need to decide which of these groups they will cater to when designing the user experience, or they will also face the difficult challenge of trying to appeal to both and potentially missing both. So on top of this, big decisions about price and user experience, there's also this issue of trust. Who do consumers trust to control their homes now that they have all these devices? Who do they trust with all this potentially sensitive data that's being taken in by cameras and microphones that they're placing everywhere and passing through their smart products? Now, there are plenty of companies that are vying for this role of security. So security system providers, internet service providers, and retail energy providers, as well as manufacturers of smart home products, and of course tech giants, are all trying to get there. Right now, we're seeing a little advantage for security system providers and ISPs from the consumers, but that doesn't mean anyone can give up on the race. Earning and keeping consumer trust is fundamental in this market, so all players must continue to make this a focus. So in our trip to CES last month, I saw a lot of new innovations and trends that are going to be very exciting to monitor. The smart home space is literally growing outside of the four walls of the home. With the help of 5G and better networking, the smart home is expanding into our yards and driveways. The rise of EVs will also have a major impact because these vehicles have cutting-edge telematics, voice control via voice assistants. They're connected to access control in our smart home, and then, of course, all the integration that they have with smart energy devices regarding chargers and vehicle-to-grid technology. On top of all those changes that directly relate to the smart home, there's also my colleagues here who study connected entertainment are also telling me that a lot of new TVs are having features that are allowing people to control smart home devices, but also things like remote controls that are using voice control, voice assistants that are controlling Netflix. There's all sorts of different features that resemble smart home devices. A lot of overlap in technologies between consumer and smart home devices, as we see it. Another big splash that that happened in the entertainment space was Sony creating their own electric mobility subsidiaries. This was a big surprise for us at CES, where they debuted a car, the Vision S1. So we're going to be seeing them make an electric car in the future, and that's very surprising. But then we've also seen the rise of EVs in the form of the Super Bowl commercials we just saw on Sunday. GM, Chevy, Polestar, and Kia all had commercials for their EVs, and then Wallbox had one for their home chargers. Those are just the ones that I noticed myself. And speaking of entertainment and blurring the lines between the smart home and connected entertainment, we want to also mention that a lot of this connected entertainment devices are controlled via virtual assistants. Now, coming in 2022, in addition to all these technologies that are going to be coming and new features and probably more growth, is going to be Matter. If this really happens and works out the way that it's promised, the standard that's designed for products to interoperate reliably and securely regardless of platform via a product certification process that could really ensure customers feel trust and have the compatibility across the products that they have, and could really be a game changer in the smart home space. So success of that initiative is going to be a really big deal. So we want to focus on that a lot. And we're going to be talking to a number of experts in that space coming up here today. So we're going to be bringing in my panelists of industry experts on the topic of integration, and we'll be right back with you. All right. Oh, welcome back. I think we have all our speakers in, so I'm ready to start introducing them. It's a pretty good list. I'm going to go through one by one, introduce them, and then they're going to have a chance to kind of introduce themselves a little bit and talk about their company. This isn't letting me go. Yeah. Great. So first we have Jake Alamat. He works for Silicon Labs. They're a leading IoT component maker, and they have an SoC that's actually built for Matter. So I'm really interested in hearing his perspective on integration and the promise of Matter from the chip maker perspective. He's also the chairman of the Z-Wave Alliance Board and vice president and general manager of IoT Home, Life, and Business Units at Silicon Labs. So Jake, how are you doing?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me today. Really appreciate the time. Again, as Chris said, at Silicon Labs, we're 100% focused on providing wireless IoT solutions for the overall IoT market. We're focused on the home and life segments as well as the industrial commercial segments. And we are a leading provider of wireless solutions across a broad range of applications and use cases, and are very excited to be here today. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. Okay, the next person I'm introducing is Samantha Fine. She's the Vice President of Business Development and Marketing for SmartThings. In addition to her leadership at SmartThings, Samantha also serves on the board of directors for the Connectivity Standards Alliance, is a board member for Thread Group, and is a leading sponsor of the Matter Initiative, so she knows integration too. Hi, Samantha. How are you doing?
Hi, we're really, really happy to be here today to talk about one simple home system with the world of possibilities. Many of you knew SmartThings as one of the early pioneers in smart home. To us today, user experience really is the key pillar of SmartThings expansion and innovation daily, with millions of people in more than 200 countries accessing SmartThings technology to create automations across a plethora of Samsung products like phones, TVs, and digital appliances. You can only imagine that our key focus is to really hone in on that consumer experience and things like Matter that are coming to market. I'm happy to be here.
Great, Samantha. Thank you for coming. Next, we have John Osborne from Lexi. He's also the chair emeritus of the Connectivity Standards Alliance and the vice chairman of the Z-Wave Alliance, and in addition to being the COO at platform maker Lexi. So we're happy to have him here and hear his perspective on integration as well. Hello, John.
Good afternoon. Good day, everybody. Thanks for having me. What attracted me to Lexi is probably one of your studies that people want to see everything under one umbrella, and Lexi provides that through their platform and their back end. So it's one of those pull it all together under one icon on a phone, or if you want to do the set it and forget it, as others had said as well, there are rules and triggers, and it learns behaviors. This is one of the things that really attracted me to Lexi. I've also been part of the CSA since really 2008, when it was named something else. I think it was Zigbee. So it was a great experience to go through there. I think early on we agreed that the industry needed to go through some form of interoperability and consolidation. And we started that many, many years ago by consolidating the Zigbee protocols down. Then we took a look at what else could we do. And there was 8 of us that really said, let's think about something like Matter. So I was one of the 8 that kind of got us all where we are today in that discussion. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be vice chair of the Z-Wave Alliance, because I think as the industry consolidates, we're going to find the best of breed technologies, and Z-Wave, CSA, Matter, Zigbee, they're all part of that as some of the others. And I think there are going to be a few companies that really bring this forward to the consumer, to the commercial side of things, and really get us to where everyone's been wanting to be, simplicity, so that they have choice in the matter going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that consumer choice is really important. Thanks for joining us, John. All right, next coming us all the way from overseas is Stefan Wittkamp. He is the co-founder and commercial director of European Smart Home Hub Powerhouse Homey. Stefan, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris, and it's great to be here. So with Homey, we have been focused on building a better smart home through interoperability for the past 7.5 years. We originally indeed come from Europe. You might hear that I'm not a native or not a Northern American speaker, but also we bring our offering to the US. And basically, what we've been doing both in software as well as in hardware with hubs is unify that smart home. We work with over 1,000 brands and put that all into a premium, powerful, but also easy to use interface and user experience that is at the same time privacy aware, because that's also why we see that there's other aspects of the smart home. I mean, we saw the slide about trust already. And yeah, we've been building that solution for 7.5 years, and it's really exciting to see the industry coming together more and more to create, that vision of a unified smart home experience. So I'm happy to share also our insights that we've been able to build up.
Yeah, that's great. Great to have your perspective, and thank you for taking the time, Stefan. So I would like to get to the questions here. So I always like to ask this question whenever we're talking about integration or any of these like sort of industry buzzwords, is trying to get the consumer perspective on that too. So we know the consumers want interoperability and we want their devices to be integrated, but I don't think they actually use that word. That's not how they describe it, and that's not how they think of it. So I always like to try and hear from leaders what they think the consumers are kind of thinking about it. So I'd like to kind of go around a couple of you guys and see what you think the consumers say instead. So Samantha, do you want to kick it off today?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great question, right? I mean, will consumers really go around saying, oh, this has a Zigbee and this has Matter and this is a Z-Wave, and oh my goodness, how about interoperability and Thread? I mean, you can only imagine that you're standing in a retail environment trying to make a decision for your home, and those buzzwords are certainly not going to come to mind. We know that what's going to come to mind is ease of use, being able to use multiple brands to put the experiences right in the center. What we're really excited about with Matter is that Matter's brand agnostic. So all devices that work with Matter and have the watermark will be compatible by design. So with that, we're able to give consumers what they really want, which is a better, easier life. And I will expand on that briefly and say, you showed some extraordinary hockey stick slides, and it is really our pivotal time is now, but our market has to be aware of where we're going, and we have to be aware of where we're going. And in that, I mean, smart home early adopters we stand on their shoulders, and it's been an extraordinary ride with developers and early adopter consumers. But what we're really competing against is how easy it is to make dinner, offer an easy nap time for kids, get home safely without concern. And putting that technology in the background is the elegance of really where at least Samsung SmartThings is leaning into now.
That's right. Great answer, Samantha. What do you think, John?
I think that consumers, as well as commercial building owners and companies with data centers, they do want ease of use. They want to be able to go in, buy the product or products that they need, not just what's available to them. And interoperability is going to be key, because I should be able to walk into a store and pick up a device that I want, like a light bulb. In the old days, I could pick a light bulb up because it's the same design that fits into a socket. Technology should be something very similar to that. Look at the box, see that there is a matching logo to everything out there. And I think Matter and Z-Wave and Zigbee will have those logos available to them, so that the consumer doesn't have to sit and read a box, make sure that it works, take it home, commission it, tinker with it, call support, turn it on, and then take it back to the store, because that unfortunately is a big problem. People take a lot of product back because they just can't figure out how to make it work. So what we are seeing in the industry with Matter and bridging technologies is that we will have interoperability. We will see companies starting to work together a little bit closer. And as Samantha said, you'll start to be able to do whatever choice that you want. Go grab the water leak sensor from the company that designs the best one for your needs and put it into the ecosystem that you've had in place maybe for a couple of years. So you don't have to forklift out an entire solution to get a smaller subset of new technology that you may want going forward. So we want to make sure that the industry has not just backwards compatibility, current compatibility, but we want to future-proof a lot of that going forward as well.
Right, and that'll be important for people's trust in terms of buying the devices, feeling like it's going to have some commitment from the companies involved and that their stuff is going to continue to work going forward. So, Stefan, what do you think? Is there any similarities, differences for your European consumers you've been working with most of your time at home?
No, I think, I mean, Samantha and John both raised really great points, and I do hope indeed that we will come to a certain place where it is the case that people will recognize that and know and trust that it works. Because actually, you know, what people are looking for is stuff that works together, products that work together. People are very product first, brand first. Also, right now they're really conditioned on the brand of products. You know, does this, I don't know, Sonos speaker works with this Philips Hue light bulb. And what we've been doing basically in the past 7 years is create that glue in between, so that there as at least is an ecosystem that does support most. But you and also we see it's a continuous evolution. So I think the fact that the whole industry is now more or less aligned, because there used to be so much walled gardens as well with proprietary standard, that at least everyone is now a little bit aligned, saying, okay, you know, working together is going to be the way forward. I believe that is already a huge step. And I think indeed what John's saying is we should make sure that the current ecosystem people have now in their homes is always also forwards compatible with that, with bridging technologies, because it will take time before everything is on a new standard that will integrate everything. And I think this is a really interesting time, because that evolution is going to take place. We're going to see rapid growth. And you know, it's coming from a foundation that's already there with a lot of users, and it's getting new technologies in the meantime. So it's going to be a great experience. But I think for the time being, a lot of the consumers will still conditioned in, you know, looking at brands, and then also maybe even looking online or whatever to see if those specifically are compatible with each other, because that is unfortunately the way they had been required to do. Because it lacked the you know, there wasn't a real transparent way of doing this in the past.
Yeah, that's true. That level of research is kind of an unfortunate side effect of the complexity. I mean, it's also part of the fun, I think, for some of our like smart home enthusiasts. I think really digging deep and comparing features and really understanding where things are coming from and how they work is kind of part of the vibe. But if we're going to jump the chasm and start looking at other segments, then maybe the experience needs to be a little different. And also, I'm just realizing I should have mentioned earlier, for everyone who's watching, we have some poll questions that are in the poll chat, in the poll tab. So if you can go in there and answer the questions, then that's great. And we can bring in the results. I'll basically be reading the results into this conversation, and we can get reactions from our leaders here on that. So just want to kind of plug the poll for a second. Now, going back to what we've been talking about. So Samantha was talking about these smart home enthusiasts that we've been kind of relying on for all the sales and the sort of promotions across to their friends and family, right? They've probably been the source of expertise and answering questions in their little communities and in their friendship groups and things like that. They're the people who do the research and understand how to make the devices work together, like Stefan was talking about. But you know, if Matter happens and all the integration that we're hoping for and the interoperability ease that we're hoping for is available, what is the potential next group? Like, who do you think is next? So Samantha mentioned a lot of like parenting, childcare kind of tasks. Like, are we looking at like moms are the next big segment? What are you guys seeing as the next big segment in terms of buying smart home devices once they get a little easier to make them all work together? Do you want to handle that one, maybe, Jake? So I shut you out of the last question.
No worries, Chris. Thank you. From a buying group perspective, you know, beyond enthusiasts, you'll see plenty of areas where adoption will increase when you don't have to think about or stand in Home Depot for an hour trying to figure out, does this work with that, right? So think of things like elder care. Think of things where you've got an aging population that wants to have automation within their homes to be able to see things, but they don't want to have to try to figure it out. You brought up things with parents. You know, that's there, but I think a lot of the enthusiasts get to that, and they tend to be younger, so they'll be a little bit more savvy. But I also think it'll be the non-engineering type folks that get involved into it. And beyond the buying groups, I think from an application perspective, we'll probably start to see faster growth in areas of IoT products that will add more value by working together in unison in a broader network. Think of things like switches, shades, locks, lighting, where you don't have one or two of them in your house, but you've got 10, 20, 30 of them. If you don't have to think about, what you go buy, you just look at the logo, buy it, bring it home, and it magically works with everything else. That is going to increase that adoption pretty significantly because it'll just be that much easier.
Well, I have to say, Chris, not if Matter comes to market. Matter's coming to market. Throwing down on that one. But and kind of adding on to what Jake was saying, I really think, and we think a lot about, we wear two hats, the one that we wear for our companies, that for me, Samsung Smart Things, and then also our work within Matter and other groups. And we really have to think about what cohorts are next. Very early on, we needed to make sure that large companies were bought into the concept, that we were willing to explode the addressable market. And when we were able to achieve that, and John being one of the very early brains behind this, when we were able to achieve that, it really started to gain a different type of momentum. And then it turned into educating developers and educating analysts. Now we really are seeing a shift to what our go-to-market strategy could be. What does that look like? And at the end of the day, it looks like healthy competition. And that's a really exciting place to be. So is that the very endpoint consumer who's standing in the store that we keep referring to? Absolutely. But it's also the person who already has devices in their home. I think Stefan was saying who has existing products in their home. And your slide sort of backs that up as well, Chris. There is a market that's already there that is going to help drive, I think, what the next large explosion is in this 18 to 36 month window after Matter launches. And from there, it will be an everyday household name and just ubiquitous across all smart home technology. Like we've said before, it won't be smart home, it'll just be home.
I totally agree with Samantha on that, by the way, because you would see, in the beginning, it will be a new technology, right? So just people are unfamiliar with it. And if that same guy that is also now already advising you on what to buy and what to take, that smart nephew or that smart neighbor doesn't buy into it or doesn't explain to you how easy it is, people are not going to Google Matter themselves, right? Not the people that are not interested in tech. They wouldn't know what watermark to look for. They will still be very much brand focused and retail focused to see what to buy. And of course, very dependent on that advice of those people that already have these smart home technologies adopted, because, people know that they're there. So it's really about indeed bringing that all together, especially because for the next couple of years, there will be, like John is also already saying, there will be multiple technologies and different protocols. Matter is a great vision and a great idea, but it will take years to see if it can become dominant, just because there's already so much out there, especially if you look at the install base. Zigbee and Z-Wave devices have been selling for 10, 20 years already. So it's going to take some time for any technology to leapfrog that.
Yeah, that's a really good comment, Stefan, because the technology that exists today, there are certain types of devices that may be batteryless. Green power, for example, very popular in Europe. That may not be an IP Wi-Fi type of device. That's going to be something like a Zigbee or a Z-Wave type device. So we will see best of breed technology continuing on in that space. Where I see two really big explosions is because Matter will help simplify the interoperability issues and the support issues. Companies can then focus on just that one thing that they do really well, like create a very unique device. They don't have to create an ecosystem, a backend, a cloud, an app, and everything else that goes along with that for years and years of support, so that they can dump their R&D and effort into that one device and be very successful. The other space that I see potentially growing dramatically is in kind of the corporate world. Corporate world has been an IP-based infrastructure for decades. Their technical folks understand IP, they support IP. You could go in and say, I've got a great security solution built on Z-Wave or a automation solution built on Zigbee. and they kind of look at you funny because they've never heard those words before and they're not going to adopt it. So Matter is going to allow us to move as an industry into that space a lot easier because they already understand IP. And with the bridging and the interoperability tools that we're putting into this as well, they may not have to forklift out all of their existing legacy expensive solutions, like BACnet and KNX and all the other ones that they just simply can't just get rid of today without short of writing a very large check. So Matter will give them this ability to move forward with new devices covering the issues that they have today without having to forklift out their older technology. So we should see a rapid spin at that point when they realize, wow, I can do this without a ton of disruption and cost.
So John, thinking about this commercial space, what is the sort of device and service mix that you're imagining there? Are you thinking of the corporate world sort of taking some of the same stuff from the smart home? Or are you imagining are we talking like drones and manufacturing and this type of like IoT world?
Good question. I think the smart home, or the home as we will call it in the future, it's just a scale thing. The technology is very, very, very similar. It is the same technology. So it just becomes scale. Can you handle it? So you'll see that go into a lot of the corporate buildings. I would say hotels, for example, would be a great opportunity so that as we travel, hopefully we get to travel back around the world. You go from one place to another and your persona follows you. So the room becomes just the way you left it in New York or when you land in Amsterdam, and places like that. With a lot of the labor shortages that we're starting to see, the technology will be implemented to kind of cover that space where people just aren't available anymore, or you just can't afford them, unfortunately. So I think there are a lot of new use cases that will come out of this, and we'll have to listen to the industry and really our consumers who are going to be asking us for solutions. They may not know how to ask those questions, but if they tell us what their problems are, we should be able to say, here's the technology or the device or set of devices or applications that will fix that for you. And, it's based on IP, so your team can support that. And I think that will really be the panacea here in the next 3 to 5 years.
I couldn't agree with you more, John. For the builder channel, from where we see it on the Samsung SmartThings side, future reliable connectivity. So, ensuring choice and compatibility at scale and enterprise level, allowing the protocol to itself unlocks additional revenue, streamlines installation, helps with training, ensures quality. We really see also a trend in that direction. And alongside that, what comes with it? Thinking about energy management. I believe there was a recent article a recent study that noted that from 2017 to 2025, energy management went from 6.3% household penetration in 2017 to 30% estimated in 2025. These things are table stakes for the build channel, for sure.
Yeah, we do a bunch of research in the multi-dwelling unit space, and the property managers that we talk to have the same kind of ideas like John is saying, where this idea of creating scenes and using devices to create an environment like in hospitality and luxury that would normally be created by sort of service, like additional humans being around, making the person feel welcome, making them, helping them get their mail, helping them, deal with their luggage or whatever situation is happening in the building. And maybe more of that is going to be happening with devices instead, depending on how the labor markets turn out, things like that. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities, and we're talking about this great new future, but with any change, there is also a downside. So I'd like to bring the vibe down a little bit in the room and kind of ask you guys, what is the negative impact in the industry? So for example, we have a question in the chat. So it says, Matter allows direct access to devices using the manufacturer's cloud. How will the device manufacturers get recurring revenue? So in this new Matter future, what are the new costs? Who's going to get left behind? What types of organizations are going to sort of suffer when Matter kind of takes over? No one wants to take the negative question? Okay, JP,
I'll jump in.
What? Who wants to go?
I think the negative aspect of it is the companies that have built these large ecosystems and support structure around the walled garden, I think they will take a hit. The
Exactly
benefit
what I
for-
was going to say, John, indeed. Yeah. The people that build a walled garden based on maybe something that they very well and then basically a brand login, that's going to be harder and harder to defend, right? Because now you can just point at everyone and say, everyone's doing that, and I'm rightfully charging. So you can charge for good hardware, for unique hardware. You might be able to charge for services that, you know, combine it all together as more on the software side, but as an intermediary that is just making some plugs and light bulbs, which are not really that differentiating themselves anymore, you're going to have a harder and harder time. I mean, right now, you already have a quite hard time because the competition is already quite fierce. But as more and more stuff will start working together, also your walled garden and your ecosystem service will mean less and less.
You know, I think that ultimately, if we address the big issues of adoption, it's going to grow the pie. So the overall market is just going to get bigger for sheer reason. But I agree with John and Stefan in the sense that, you know, markets are change and perpetual change, and having just a Me Too type product, it's going to get harder as that starts to become table stakes. So those that don't adapt and evolve or find ways of being able to be more inclusive of other products coming into different ecosystems is going to potentially create challenges. But you know, for those that lean in on making sure that they're increasingly updating their value and having something unique, I actually think that they're going to see a nice tailwind. For all those that focus there, the market's going to get bigger the more that we take the big challenges to adoption off the table. So for me, the folks that won't really be, and I was trying to figure out the right way to say this, it's the ones that don't lean into the change.
Yeah. No, indeed, because there's opportunities for everyone, and you know everyone has had an initial reason why they could put up a walled garden, so they have a specialty and they can specialize and they can reap the momentum. It's if you do not follow in and you want to keep basically protecting an older or slash outdated business model, I think that's when you're gonna have a very hard time when the rest of the world starts working together and basically leapfrogging you whatever you can build on your own. I mean, a collective of companies can always build so much more. I mean, that's why we have been able. That's why we've been focused on connecting devices from the get-go, right? I mean, there isn't a single company that builds exactly the right light bulb, wall switch, dimmer, robot vacuum, a stereo set, TV, and motorized shades for you. I mean, these are so vastly different product categories. You would want to select the best of breed for your exact situation, and it's those excellent products that will definitely excel. And because the whole market is growing, it won't be. I mean, there's opportunities for everyone. But it's these old systems that thrived on putting mediocre stuff together, but at least putting it together. They need to make a step also. If they don't do anything with this development, then they are going to have a hard time, I believe.
Proprietary
Okay.
doesn't bring security anymore. It'll bring death. They will just trip away.
Well, unless you've got a killer value proposition that no one else can lean into, but it gets harder.
Right. So so you guys are imagining, so it's going to force some kind of evolution, right? Like everyone's going to have to differentiate. We're going to have innovation because you can't just rely on the fact that there's some momentum that someone already bought something in your ecosystem. So now they got to buy your thermostat, even though it's not as good as the other ones on the market because they already bought, you know, your smart lighting and smart lighting hub or whatever. But what about initially? So for the people who have been waiting, so we know the big companies are moving already, and so like Silicon Labs, like Jake, you guys are ready, like you have your components ready, and the giants are already ready for Matter. But some of the smaller guys are not necessarily there in terms of switching over their, I don't know, software components, whatever. How is that going to go for them in terms of transition? Like other people in the industry who have been kind of wait and see on Matter, how is it going to be for them in terms of additional costs in whatever kind of change they need to make?
Yeah, I mean, there's two parts of that. I'll start with the latter part, which is potential new entrants that are coming in. Um, just because matters in definition and is being worked on doesn't mean that folks can't get started or can't bridge in. Um, John had kind of alluded to a little bit of this earlier, that there are very robust technologies that are out there today that you can use to enable automation or industrial applications or any kind of wireless connectivity. So there's a lot of stuff to get started. And when Matter is ready, some of those same solutions can be upgraded to Thread and support the Matter spec with software upgrades and things of that nature. I think waiting, especially if you've got a good idea that's going to truly add value to the market or whichever demographic you're selling to, person, corporation, government, or whoever, somebody else is going to figure that out, and you might be late because you're waiting for everything to get baked. Now that leads into the first part of the big area that it's changed. You've got the folks that are going to be successful here. You're going to have new folks that find new areas of value that are going to grow that. But you also have folks out there that are really, really strong, have existing ecosystems, have a lot of products out there in the field, right? And as they're looking to adopt Matter and new things, they've got to find a way to make sure that works into the value proposition of the existing infrastructure that's out there. And one of the things that we've been focused on at Silicon Labs is how do we make that transition as easy as possible so that you don't have to completely rip everything up and start from scratch, because that could create a brand new barrier for folks that go out in the market. So I guess my suggestion to the folks that are saying, oh, hey, I'm sitting on the sidelines until Matter's completely baked. If I'd say if you have a good idea, get started now. You can build products with Thread, you can build products with Zigbee, you can build products with Z-Wave, and get out to market, and then you can use those same solutions. So provided you pick the right underlying technologies to leverage Matter in the future. Just like the other big guys today are looking at their existing infrastructures and how do they bring that forward with their value and interoperability.
I completely agree with you on that, Jake, because also it seems sometimes also in the media and the way we're approaching it that people are going to wait until Matter is launched, but Matter will not, magically take over 50% of all households within a month or so, right? This is not going to be some huge momentum and then bam, everyone has Matter, and if you don't have Matter, your product is obsolete immediately. No, this will be very, very gradual. There will be millions of users that already have a Zigbee hub or a Z-Wave hub or whatever. And your solution, indeed, if you can get it out there, build it, start building a name, start getting your brand known. And, when Matter hits and gets to market, it's very risky also to bet on exactly when a technology in development is being finished. You could end up waiting longer than you would want, than you'd expect it to. So, when it is finished and when it's there and when you're ready, if you launch your product with support for Matter just a bit after Matter is released, you haven't missed that much of a market. So this is not a thing that will be an overnight huge thing. It is an important momentum that gets the whole market growing, in the years to come, and provides, I think, a very interesting perspective. Having it all work in unison, having it all work together, that's what we're working towards. And that is, if you have a solution, make sure it works with the proper ecosystems right now. Building something proprietary right now might not be the best idea, but, build it on Zigbee, build it on Z-Wave, build it on another technology that's at least, a little bit popular and feasible in the market. And then from there on, continue.
Yeah, I think the comment I would make there are going to be some winners that are ahead of the curve. Stefan, you mentioned that you've been doing this for many years. Lexi's been doing this for many years. There are several protocols that we are covering as two organizations. That gives us a leg up, and anyone that's in that space will give them a leg up, because then Matter is simply added to that mix. If you're already Zigbee experienced, if you're Thread experienced, you're simply just adding in that additional application layer of Matter. So those folks that are on the sidelines waiting, if they're going to have to build an ecosystem on top, if they're only just one, if they're just Z-Wave or just Thread or just Zigbee, they're going to have to then add in additional protocols, because when people realize this is enabling interoperability across the board, they're going to want that. So the companies that are focusing and have been focusing on this already, I think will have a lead in this race. But ultimately, we would like to see as an industry, companies who put their energy into creating the best device that they can, so that they win on value. They win because they are very unique and they fit in a niche that just no one else is going to do, because they don't want to just spend all that time on selling 50,000 units. But you do it the right way, you'll make a ton of money at it. So I think there is a way to catch up fairly quickly. Don't focus on the ecosystem, focus on the device, whether it's Zigbee, Z-Wave, or Matter, but be prepared to be part of someone else's ecosystem if you're going to be that small, fast-to-market player on the device side.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Indeed, for a single technology ecosystem, it's going to be a lot harder. And building a new ecosystem right now is also going to be very hard. By the way, whether you're starting to build it, maybe as a you even see huge telco and energy companies try it and not always succeed. So building that will be harder indeed. But as a device point of view, it's so much easier to indeed, like Jake also said, get started, find a specific solution and just switch on later.
I think that's right. And John, I think you touched on one thing. For us, SmartThings has been around forever, one of the most open and flexible, with Zigbee, Z-Wave, and now Matter. So we look at it as this is a premier technology. It continues to go by the tenets of an open platform. But John, you said it best. If this is something that you're considering or it hasn't hit your product roadmap yet, yes, of course, we're expecting this to be the de facto standard over the next several years. And actually, my question back is, what's our bet on when that is? When's that sweet spot? 18 to 36 months? Are we looking at a 5-year trajectory? Really kind of honing in on where our bets are, I think, is all about where your platform and devices land. Absolutely. And John said it right. And we are bringing Matter to market to increase competition and open opportunities for revenue growth and revenue opportunity. Certainly, it is based on consumer demand, but we're all in the business of competition. So get in there.
So I wanted to go to the poll questions real quick before I kind of wrap up asking you guys a last question about each of you. So we asked the audience, what is the biggest threat to Matter's success? And the winner, 40%, said it doesn't work as well as intended because too few devices are on the standard. So I think that's interesting with regards to what you guys were talking about in terms of the choices people are making, whether they're going to try and get on a standard today in a way to be kind of future-proofed, or whether people are going to make the choice, as you guys are kind of saying, is the unwise choice of kind of operating on their own. So in terms of your work, Samantha, in trying to pull more people in, right? Like it's a big marketing effort, and we're going to hear Michelle talk about this too. What do you think about the risk of kind of too few devices being on the Matter standard in the near term for it to like get the momentum it needs to take off?
I think, in a logistics sense, I think with the way we came out of Test Event 3, we're going to have some extraordinary new products on the market and products that will have over-the-air updates that will give us a good, solid foundation this year. And we're fully committed on the SmartThings side. I know our other partners in ecosystems and device manufacturers, some of the best in the business, are coming to market this year. So I feel relatively confident that we'll start with a good, solid foundation. Now, as we look to what's next for Matter and what is next on our device list selection, we'll really have to think about where market demand is and where we want to go with that. Does that mean we lean into areas like additional focus on security, energy, appliances? Energy in particular comes to mind for us. Obviously, camera. Where we go next, I think will be very exciting. But foundationally, I'm really looking forward to this year as these foundational products come to market from some of the biggest brands in the world. I feel pretty confident about it.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
quick comment on that. I think the reason it will be successful is because when these four large organizations, Amazon, Apple, Google, Zigbee, came together and said, how are we going to make something like this happen? And rather than build from scratch, they each put their best components forward. So Zigbee brought Apple HomeKit, Google Weave, Amazon, very, very big proponent of Zigbee and other protocols, and works with all hubs programs. So there's not a complete start from zero. So a lot of this technology has already been out there, proven out. And because you have the best of each, you're going to have that interoperability and backwards compatibility pretty much built in fairly quickly. The other reason it will be successful, in my opinion, is because those organizations came to, at the time, Zigbee, because it was a global standard organization that had test and certification programs. They didn't have to build that as well. So they used the existing infrastructure that's over a decade old on how to generate specs, go through test and certification, and have a very high level of security and confidence to the industry. And Samantha said it. They've already been through 3 test events, and there are a number of devices out there that those of us that sit on the board and have exposure to it, we see what's out there. It's impressive, and I can't say on details of it, but I have seen Matter working with another protocol. So that interoperability, that is going to actually happen. I feel extremely confident about that.
That's great. So, all right. So everyone's really bullish on it. But
one more
I'm sorry, go ahead, Samantha.
one on that, and that is these devices are coming, but what onboarding looks like, what setup looks like, I think that question remains. And where we land when products first come to market, do first to market products with easy onboarding and simplified onboarding, how does that play into where Matter goes next? I'm sorry to throw a wrench in there, but there really is risk in how we look at setup and how we look at onboarding. These early products, John and I both, as board members, I think it's public enough that these test events are ongoing and they're exciting brands in there. But how do we onboard? How do we set up? How do we gain consumer confidence super early on through that process? I think that's both risk and opportunity.
I also see, just to add to that, a final thought. I mean, in the beginning, it will be one-off technologies, right? I mean, there will be multiple technologies out there, and it will be interesting to see, how many brands, also manufacturers, will jump on, how many will, stick with the current ecosystem they're still in, and there is a risk, and it all depends. I totally agree with Samantha on the initial onboarding and also initial adoption, both of some larger brands as well as consumers, to get that ecosystem ball rolling, and it will become a quite successful technology. The question is, I believe, will it be, one of 4, or will it become the de facto? And I think that is something that we will need to see in the time to come, because Zigbee was also set up to be the de facto, and Z-Wave was as well. And we've seen technologies before set up as the de facto, and at the moment it can be sometimes hard. So I do agree. So with this full option, I do think that this could be a threat to Matter really taking off. But I think a lot of companies, will switch over once they see that the initial reception is well. But I do believe it will be a multi-year process though, until it could become such a prominent standard.
That is the most important thing, Stefan, right there, is that it's going to take all of the players working together to make sure that the destination matches the brochure, right? So if we can figure out a way to make that, and we will, and everybody's excited and is pushing forward, and it's got a lot of weight and momentum, but getting that consensus to making sure that ecosystems can interoperate with each other, that products irrespective will work with each other, and not trying to throw tons of wrenches into the system, right? So that way I can protect my little sliver of the world. That's what's going to screw this whole thing up, right? The promise of Matter is that you don't have to think about what you go buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you buy your equipment or who you get it from. It allows ecosystem vendors to not have to be a jack of all trades, but focus on what makes them different, right? And gives them the ability to say, hey, I can work across multiple ecosystems, same set of parts. Pretty cool, right? And if we all work together, we can actually build something that's really strong for everybody and is going to grow all of our businesses in a significant way. But that's the opportunity and the challenge that's ahead of us.
So I wanted to go out on that as you were saying there. So I think the answer is going to be lift for everyone, but what is the impact going to look like at each of your companies? If you can give me a real short answer, are you anticipating a certain product line or a certain, like what's going to change in terms of what you guys are doing if Matter is as successful as we're all hoping over the next couple of years? So Jake, maybe you can go first because your answer might be the easiest. You're going to sell lots of chips, more chips to everyone, right?
And in fact, it's a good plug for our XG24 set of products that
everyone go out and buy. They're already available.
They're already available. You can go buy boards. Check out siliconlabs.com. But it is going to drive product development, right? And it's going to drive Samantha and Stefan and John were talking about advancements in security, other things that will get integrated into systems, and that will continue to grow, especially as new use cases come on board. So I think you'll start to see a big evolution in the offerings, both of devices and products that come from this, from Matter growing.
All right, what do you think, John? What's going to change for Lexi?
Well, we are seeing dramatic growth right now. There's more demand than Jake's chips can keep up with. So,
work harder, Jake. All right.
Yes, I think once the supply chain issues start to kind of calm down a little bit, we'll be able to start filling orders very, very rapidly, and our volume is going up. Our multi-protocol solution is just everyone's looking for it, and Matter will just be something that we add on top of it because of the team's experience already with the other protocols. So it's not going to be a big leap for us. And the demand just keeps getting bigger. So it's going to be a very, very busy couple of years for us.
All right, Stefan, Jake, and John had some bragging about how successful they're going to be. Do you want to talk about what Homey's making moves in the U.S., right? Are you anticipating Matter being kind of part of the growth here?
Yeah, no, I mean, we see all the same signs, and also our demand is higher than Jake's chips can keep up with. So I think this is an industry issue. But apart from that, and apart from those gips, I mean, well, for starters, it's nice to see the whole industry finally getting behind that, getting everything to work in one system and the unification that we've been advocating for 7.5 years. It will hopefully also in the future make it easier for us, to support all those different devices, because obviously we have that platform and we have that ecosystem, but it doesn't mean that every device magically always works great. And I mean, especially in the years to come, the fact that, like John's ecosystem, Samantha's also, and ours, I mean, because they've been bridges between those technologies, especially in, the first, and in the years to come, those will be actually the most important, because there will be another technology on the block, right? In the beginning, it won't be, like we agree, it won't be all Matter, the first second it hits the market. And especially in that transition, I think that our role only will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we provide some really unique features, interfaces, and services that we just know consumers love, and they will also love, when there's devices on different protocols like Matter behind that, of course.
All right, great. Samantha, you want to take us out here? Unfortunately,
Yeah.
you guys don't rely on chips. You don't have to attack Jake, right?
That's right. I can just laugh. Love you, Jake.
Well, no, you don't do hardware anymore. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. And exactly, that's it. So, I mean, we, from a Smart Things Hub perspective, the Smart Things Hub will fully adopt Matter. We've made that announcement. But more exciting to us that we're really focused on is now how does that work with the Smart Things Hub inside of our televisions and other products, announcing Matter as a controller to start with in televisions and appliances and across Galaxy devices. it's an endless opportunity. That combined with the thousands of brands we already work with, we see it Samsung Matter plus plus. So really seeing how do we ignite the power of the Samsung consumer experience while layering Matter and our ecosystem partners to drive unique experiences that are personalized to the consumer. And really that's our laser focus right now is looking at that wide opportunity.
All right, great. Thank you
And
so
like
much, everybody. Oh, Stefan, you're going to get me in trouble with my boss.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No. Oh, yeah, no. Like Jake have been saying, I mean, the whole market will grow so much. There's so much opportunity for everyone. I really believe.
Okay.
Sorry, last thoughts, Chris.
All right, great. So thanks for everyone beyond here. We're going to be switching over now. We're going to do a fireside chat with Michelle from CSA, who's going to add to this more. And I appreciate everyone for being on the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So welcome back. That was a great conversation. Thank you so much, Chris, and that awesome panel of speakers. My name is Elizabeth Parks, and I'm the President and Chief Marketing Officer for Parks Associates. We're so excited for you to be joining us again. Lots of discussion around the role of interoperability, especially now with this new initiative, Matter, and that works out great today for our conversation. We have Michelle Mandela Freeman, Head of Marketing and Member Services with the Connectivity Standards Alliance, who is going to share more about what's going on with Matter, some of the latest announcements, and really what's to come in 2022. She is taking questions, and I know we're going to have a lot of them, so please feel free to drop any questions in the question box or the chat. I will incorporate them throughout our discussion. We are going to look at some of the ultimate goals for Matter, the expectations and announcements in 2022, and have a crystal ball looking at 2025 and the year 2030. So Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's go ahead and start out with you sharing what your role is, more about the CSA, and in your own words, what Matter is trying to accomplish. Oops. Well, hold on one sec. Let's see if we can unmute you.
There we are. Thank you very much. I was saying thank you so much for inviting me, and I was really excited to be backstage while the prior panel was talking. It was great to hear everybody talking about Matter, about the pros and cons, the strengths and weaknesses. And so I'm really pleased to be able to spend some time with you here today, Elizabeth. Relative to the Connectivity Standards Alliance, as I'm sure you all know, we are an industry trade organization and a standards development organization that's been around this year for 20 years, which is pretty amazing. And it's a privilege to be a part of an organization with such a great history and legacy. Back in 2019, there was a glimmer in the eye of our CEO, Tobin Richardson, as well as a number of our key members, to think about what comes next. how to truly overcome some of the barriers to adoption and growth and use of the Internet of Things, particularly in smart home, and obviously, you know, well beyond that as well. And the concept around Matter was born. So if we, you know, think about kind of what Matter is in our words, in effect, it is, as your last panel did talk a lot about, is this universal language for the Internet of Things, you know, focused on IP, focused on a common application protocol, whose intention is to make it so much easier for developers to use and adopt, and so much easier for consumers to purchase and choose and bring into their homes and other places where they choose to have connectivity. So that is really kind of the essence of it. You know, I think we can go into any depth and any direction that you want, Elizabeth, to talk about problems it solves and use cases and adopters and non-adopters. So let me know what we should talk about next after that brief introduction.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you for that. And, you know, I want to say that we very much appreciate your expertise. You know, somebody who's been in the industry for decades, has the experience and wisdom to understand just how complex this is to get to. So maybe we can start there and just talk about what is the problem that we're seeing for consumers. We know with the research now that we're showing out of our work of surveys of 10,000 internet households that now 37% of households have a smart home device. That's a 1% increase over our survey 6 months ago, meaning that now 1 million more households with internet have a smart home device. So what's the problem ultimately that Matter is going to solve if you're looking at this bigger vision of the promise of the smart home?
I think I'll name the problems simply, and then I'll talk about them just a little bit more discreetly. First, I think it's choice, ease of use, and simplicity. And I think that speaks both to those adopters that you've mentioned, right? So the market's growing, and it's great that we're seeing that increase in, you know, broadband home users adopting and bringing smart home devices and IoT into the home. But shouldn't that number be so much bigger? And what about those users who haven't even entered the market, whether they're here in the US or around the world? How do we make smart home and smart technology and smart devices into their places of residence more accessible and easier for them to adopt? So I think the idea with Matter is to kind of break down what right now are some of those barriers to market entry and the barriers to choice. Today, if you're a consumer who is in the market and is one of these, you know, adopters of today's technology, you are kind of faced with some choices and some limitations. Do I pick this ecosystem? Do I pick this device? Wait a minute, I like that device, but you know what? I'm not sure if it works with the thing I have. And it becomes this kind of dance that the consumer needs to do and orchestrate so that they can deliver the value they seek. And even more challenging for folks who haven't adopted yet. They don't know what to buy, let's say. They're not ready to enter the market. They see this confusion and this challenge of interoperability and maybe say, it's too much trouble for me. I think that's where Matter can start to step in and become that thing that really helps break down those walled gardens, that allows people to choose the things they want and bring them into their home as they desire, and not have to worry about that dance between ecosystem and device.
That's great. And a lot of what you're talking about really speaks to this fragmentation that we're seeing everywhere, whether it's the fragmentation of the different types of devices that have all sorts of different use cases, whether it's the platform, whether it's the service, whether it's a single point device or a system, and also the fragmentation of the channel. So where consumers get the devices from, whether they're buying it retail, whether they get it with a new home that they're getting built, whether they get their house renovated and have, you know, some installers come in and add in technology in that renovation process. So can you share a little bit more on your thinking with these purchasing of a single device versus the system, and where, you know, Matter is really fitting in that way. We do see that consumers who buy smart home devices right now, based off of our survey work, those are the ones who are going out and buying more. And now that the average household with smart home devices has 8 devices in their home. So where does Matter see these two big options for consumers when they're in that purchase journey?
Yeah, I think when we talk about kind of reducing fragmentation or kind of improving that experience, I think what Matter really, you know, allows to have happen on the developer side, for instance, is folks don't need to worry about having to develop for those various ecosystems. That translates to what happens in the channel. Today, you go into, if you are a DIYer and you go into a retail outlet, you're looking at these, you know, discrete locations. Here's this brand, and it works with this, and does it work with that? And again, I think that what Matter will bring to that channel experience and that purchase experience is a bit of more straightforwardness and simplification, so that you're not worried about how all of those things will be impacting you as a shopper in the retail outlet. And I think the same thing holds true if you're talking about builders and installers and renovators. If you think about building on kind of a foundational IP network, which again is a huge component of what Matter is bringing to the table, you know, common application protocol built on IP, you're choosing the language of the internet. Again, simplifying the process so that down the road, you don't have to worry about what did I invest in, and is this going to be transferable, and can I create, you know, that continuity of experiences, whether the home I've renovated is a home I live in or a home I sell to the next person or what have you. So I think in both of those ways, in terms of the build, pre-build, and rebuild, as well as in the retail experience, Matter helps to create some smoothness and some simplicity for the folks in those channels.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly in the home builder space, I mean, I was just at KBIS and the International Builder Show, and it was amazing. I mean, the technology that is being incorporated and integrated into, you know, just everyday products, it's coming big time. And when the builder is there adding tech in and really actively seeking out the best solutions, you know something's moving in the smart home space. But let's talk a little bit about the beginning of the year and CES and some of the announcements that we saw. So, I mean, we were at CES. Many people were there. Many people were not there and followed it in the digital space. But I mean, Matter was everywhere. If you had a point to make about Matter, it was that you were involved in the initiative and, you know, really a very strong backing from the industry. So is there anything you'd like to share, any specific announcements or products that maybe you would like to highlight that came out at CES? Anything new that you all specifically announced that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think I'll talk about a couple of things. I mean, we ended the year, you know, as an alliance and member companies really strong. So coming into CES, I think what you were seeing is a lot of the companies who've been participating in the development of the specification, who've been participating in test events, and have been seeing the progress, you know, behind the scenes as member companies, were much more vocal and forward about the things that they were doing to support Matter. There were nearly 30, there were 28 different, you know, member announcement and company announcements about Matter at the show. It was just thrilling to see, you know, it was thrilling to see Samsung, you know, committing to Matter across all their surfaces and doing that as part of a keynote. It was wonderful to kind of also see announcements like Google Fast Pair and the advances in frustration-free setup that Amazon is bringing to their toolkits that both kind of support Matter. We saw Schneider actually do a really great piece about the future of smart homes and sustainability, and Matter as a key part of that. And there was tons and tons of news from member companies, from silicon providers who were talking about multi-technology and low power system on a chip, you know, folks like Silicon Labs and NXP, and also some really, really cool product announcements. Belkin Wemo did some announcing, GE Lighting, LG, via and Arlo too. And I think, Arlo coming in and talking about Matter also speaks to the fact that we are starting to see additional work in new device spaces coming up because, as you all know, the standards development process is something that is constant and iterative. So there's a ton more stuff that I think is going to be coming down the pipe from our members in the coming months too.
Absolutely. And, Arlo is really interesting one, especially with their partnership now with Calix, where they will be extending their reach into the rural, the smaller ISPs, bringing the choice of security solutions, through the broadband provider. So big announcements there. Let's see, in terms of energy, let's talk a little bit about energy. You mentioned Schneider Electric, and I think that many of the companies in the space are now leading with an energy first type of value proposition and understanding the use of energy, building products that are more energy efficient, and generally enabling consumers to better understand, what their usage is and how they can be an active participant in saving energy. So I want to see if we can discuss where you see this going over the next short term and long term, everything from solar, demand response programs. I know you have a background with Landis and Geyer as well in your history of work. So I'd love to hear more from you on this role of energy management in the home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the wonderful things about the Alliance is that, our members have been longtime drivers of that information transparency and connectivity for consumers for energy use in the home. As you, and I'm sure all of your listeners and viewers know, standards like Zigbee and like Zigbee Smart Energy have been specified in smart metering systems all around the world. So there's millions and millions of smart meters out there that have this connectivity information. And it was really kind of that first time there was a bridge between what's happening within the transmission and distribution of electricity and energy and transparency to the consumer in the home. So that coupled with a lot of other, movement, particularly market about electricity deregulation that would bring and present information to the consumer so they can make smarter choices. I think, we've been a part of those technology enhancements and evolutions for 20 years. If I look a little bit ahead, I think one of the really interesting things is that now moving into this world of an IP focus and the language of the internet, we can just see this area continuing to grow and improve. So while with the launch of the original version or the first version of Matter, so release 1 of Matter will be here at the middle of the year, one of the things that is happening right now is that there is some investment going on from our member companies to say, how can we bring energy management use cases to Matter? So given the history of success that we've had in energy management and smart energy, how can we now with members continue to evolve Matter and include energy use cases like integration of distributed energy resources, like integration of electric vehicle charging and EV charging solutions. So I think those are things you're going to see coming from the Alliance and our members as part of Matter in the future.
That's great. And, we were on site with LG and they were really talking a lot about this idea of the virtual power plant, where basically there's individual homes that have these resources, a lot of them coming from batteries that are able to hold that energy and then put together, you end up creating a big energy savings that can get redistributed out. So I think that's way down in our future, but that's what they're talking about now, and it's really showing up all over the place. This does speak to the messaging of the smart home and reaching that various consumer segments that have an interest. So what are some of the other core messages that you see are really resonating? Of course, there's safety and security, and we know that smart home devices, a lot of them get attached to a home security system, and that enables all sorts of things to happen. But what besides safety, security, and energy, those are the top ones that we're always talking about. What other messages do you think the CSA will share with the
industry players? And then likewise, what will get back out to the consumer as Matter continues to unfold really in 2022?
Yeah, I think that, again, from an alliance perspective, you are correct. There are these two places where we do need to message. One is messaging to the industry. And I actually think your last panel did a great job of kind of speaking to what some of these key messages are for industry players. The first is this notion of collaborating on the future of IP in the smart home and developing a common protocol is a way for rising tides to lift all boats. So that notion of creating a collaborative environment where everyone kind of works together and has their puts and takes will lead to something that is better and bigger for everyone in the marketplace. So a lot of those, questions and concerns about hesitancy of should I be participating? Should I join? Should I maintain and keep my systems closed? I think, our big message to the market on that is absolutely not. You need to participate, because the more we can collaborate to create a level of commonality in places that are non-differentiating but important, the more opportunity there is for the market to grow, and for you as a prospective member company and a developer of products and systems and services, the more opportunity you have to differentiate and accelerate your own business in new and better ways. So that, I think, is the one big message that as an alliance, we want to bring to the industry. Relative to your question about, the messages that need to go to the consumers and users of the market, I think, again, the focus is really on interoperability and choice. And then you talked about energy, and security, but I'll reinforce again the point of kind of security and privacy and reliability. So for the standard, and as we think about what we are hoping our members convey to the marketplace, is that in the use of Matter and the Matter mark, it is a symbol of trust to consumers, that the technology that underpins that device from a standards perspective has been built by a strong community, is built on strong security foundations, and will lead to better experiences and interoperability long term. So we think those are kind of key messages that need to get to the consumer marketplace. Interoperability, which leads to choice; strong security foundations, which leads to trust.
Great. And of course, the word trust coming up. We can't have a session without that word front and center. I do have a quick question from the audience. What about the role of different devices, non-smart home devices, the television, other things in the home, in the connected product ecosystem? Do you see a future where we're going to be integrating different ecosystems all the way across, so that the television and the entertainment side of things, this is all across all smart products?
Yeah, I'll say, right off the bat, in short, I guess the answer is yes, right? If we think about what's happening today, even in release 1 of Matter, we do have support for TVs. So there are capabilities that are coming out in the initial specification that will allow for that will allow for a level of connectivity between your smart home devices, either using your TV as a vehicle to interface with the smart home, or using other smart home devices to do things like basic casting services and things like that for TVs. And I think there's a lot of interest from our member companies, and we're seeing more companies join the alliance that have a bigger focus on media and entertainment, as well as those who are in the much more traditional device spaces in smart homes. So I think that those lines between these are these types of smart devices, and these are other kind of home operation smart smart devices, I think those lines are blurring, and I think consumers expect that. They want to have I believe, and your research will show better, they want to have that great and connected and high value experience. And that means I want my TV to talk to my phone, to talk to my lighting, so that I can have that dynamic high value experience in my home.
Yeah, no, we certainly envision that as well, and have for many decades, considering the different ecosystems in the home and their convergence, the overlapping opportunities, especially for the experience from the consumer side, but also the business opportunities that are there. And I think we'll continue to see more services coming. It's a service based market. Consumers are embracing that. It's amazing how quickly our time can pass by. And so we have a final question here, looking at your crystal ball and telling us, let's go out to 2030. So that's almost 10 years, I guess 8 years now that we're in 2022. What do you think the home is going to look like? Are we going to keep saying smart home, or will it just be the home? Just like our phone is now a phone and not a smartphone. It's just what we use. I mean, what is the vision that you have for our future?
I do love, by the way, that, this notion that our home is no longer a smart home, but just home. So I think that's a beautiful vision to have and to always keep in our minds in terms of how we design the next set of services and capabilities that come from standards and come from our members. When I think about another component of that vision, I really think we need to think about globalization, accessibility, and equity in access to smart home features and smart home capabilities, so that no matter where you call home or what type of home you have, that what we collectively bring as a global standards body and as our members bring as industry players are thinking broadly and are thinking universally about accessibility for smart home and smart home capabilities for consumers everywhere. So if I think about the vision of the future, it must incorporate a sense of accessibility and equity in smart technology.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate you joining the conversation today, and really a big shout out to all the work that you and your team at the CSA are doing, along with all of the member companies we know that are working hard in the background to make this happen. Parks Associates does greatly support this initiative, especially for the role of consumers at home. And you touched on all sorts of things: collaboration, choice, trust, services, devices, and accessibility with broadband at the foundation. So again, I want to thank you for being here today, and I hope to see you in person again, maybe at our event in May.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks, and we will be right back for our next panel. So thank you again for joining us. See you soon.
Okay, welcome back. Very excited to get going with our second panel for this session. I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research at Parks Associates. Thanks for joining us today. I've really enjoyed these conversations of talking about interoperability and matters specifically, and really looking kind of down the pipe into the future and how things are going to roll out. Very, very exciting stuff. We're also going to be talking today about the state of the market today as it is, selling products into the home, selling smart home systems into the home, and the experience from a really great lineup of industry leaders. from a variety of organizations here. I'm going to welcome them in and ask that each of them introduce themselves and their organizations to you, and then we'll get going. So I'd like to start with Kenneth Camp, who's the Product Innovation Director with Sengled. Thank you, Kenneth. How are you today?
I'm fine. Sengled.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, did not get that out well. So thank you. Tell us a little bit more about Sengled and about your role there.
Yeah, so I joined Sengled in 2021. I've been in the lighting industry for a little over 16 years. But smart lighting is newer on the resume for myself. So I'm very excited to go from general lighting into smart lighting last year. But Sengled is and has been a global leader in smart lighting. We've been in the lighting business since '97, but in smart lighting specifically for the last 10 years. And we kind of got to kick off our 10th year in smart lighting in a big way at CES in January with our 10th CES Innovation Award. So we're very excited about that. And that's adding to our broad portfolio of items. We don't just operate in one protocol. We want to reach customers where they are and integrate into whichever system and protocol works best for their home. So that means Zigbee was our first protocol, and then we added after that Wi-Fi products, Bluetooth mesh was added in 2020 and 2021. And then most recently, we started adding Z-Wave to our platform. And as I'll talk a little bit later, and I'm sure has already been part of most of the conversation today, we will definitely be adding Matter into our portfolio as well. So basically, Sengled, we want to make lighting easy, smart lighting easy. Most people don't want to think about their light bulbs too hard, but we're branching into a lot of different things, especially this year into more entertainment-focused lighting. And so we want to make that easy by, as I said earlier, reaching our customers where they are and fitting into their existing ecosystem.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kenneth. And congratulations on that award at CES. I'm sure we'll be hearing about some of those specific features that you received your awards and that you announced at CES a little bit later. So great to have you on the panel. Next, we have Scott Harkins, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Resideo, with great long industry expertise and insight into both the energy and security channels. So very happy to have you on the panel. Scott, tell us a little bit more about Resideo.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. You make me feel when you introduce me with such long experience. But I lead the sales and marketing organization for Resideo. Many of you listening may not recognize the brand. We're actually a spin-off of Honeywell. Most of our products in the market are branded as Honeywell Home, not as Resideo. We are an organization that really is pro-first focused, meaning most of the products we sell are sold to security dealers, HVAC contractors, plumbers, and some other professionals that do home and small business services. And we look at the home as having a series of networks. There's an air network that moves air throughout the home. We're a market leader in how that air gets conditioned through thermostats and zoning systems that are becoming more and more and more connected. We think about how people move through the home. We call that the security network. And we are a leader in home security products and services sold through professional security dealers. We think about how water might flow through the home through pipes that allow, again, water to go to your bathroom, to your washing machine, et cetera. And we try to protect those pipes from water leaks and things. And we serve the plumbing market for those types of products. And we look at the home. The fourth network is really the energy network. How does power move about the home? And what can we do to make power and energy usage more efficient? And we do that through a variety of ways. Our thermostat certainly can impact your HVAC power consumption, but we also have technologies that can monitor power and predict failures on the large equipment that might be through them. So pretty large company. We've been in the space for a really long time and excited to be a member of this panel.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Next up, we have Kevin Kraus, who's the VP of Global Programs and Technology Alliances for Smart Residential Solutions at ASSA ABLOY. Hi, Kevin. Tell us a little bit more about your role and about ASSA ABLOY.
Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome everyone. ASSA ABLOY is a merger of two companies back in 1994. and that is Asa, which is a Swedish company, Abloy, which was a Finnish company, and created Asa Abloy. And then they acquired many brands over the last almost 30 years now we're coming up on. And Yale is our primary residential brand or global brand that we use for door locks, both residential and commercial. And the interesting fact is Yale was actually founded in 1840. So it's over 160-year-old brand, 180-year-old brand, and is one of the biggest Asa Abloy companies right now. So we operate in all of the major markets: residential, multifamily, small business, and commercial. And we are the global leader in residential commercial door solutions. We operate in over 70 countries, about $9 billion in sales, and around 48,000 employees. Again, we try to be the most integrated, or work to be that. So we have partnerships with all of the companies you see there: Amazon, Apple, Google, Ring, Zigbee integration, Z-Wave integration, smart things, and of course now Matter, and we'll talk about that. Again, our residential brands consist of Yale, MTech, which is a high-end decorative brand, and then August. A lot of people realize we bought August 4 years ago, and that is a consumer brand, B2C, we use directly in North America. We have a lot of national partners in the pro channel and distribution, along with the big retail players like Best Buy, Lowe's. And of course, we just heard from Scott, Honeywell is one of our large partners, or the Honeywell brand under Resideo, and many of the others, Alarm.com, ADT, etc. So we look forward to being on the panel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. And thinking back all the way, 1840, the Asa Abloy, company has certainly seen many iterations of residential lifestyle pattern changes and building and construction changes. So great to have a Asa Abloy represented here today, and glad to have you on the panel. Next, we have Jana Wellander, who's the CEO of Craftful, and right in the middle of smart learning and smart design and product innovation in the smart home space. So Jana, tell us a little bit more about yourself and Craftful.
Thanks, Jennifer. Excited to be here. So I'm CEO and co-founder of Craftful. Before starting Craftful, I was head of product at IFTTT, or If This Then That, or as we called ourselves, IFT. So I worked with lots and lots of connected hardware in that role. At Craftful, we provide a platform for building usable connected hardware. Most recently, we launched an analytics solution that helps hardware companies track the most critical metrics for connected hardware, like whether users are successfully connecting their devices, where users are dropping off in the experience, how users interact with relevant key features on the product. And given all our work in providing intuitive setup and user experience for connected hardware, I'm super excited to join today's session and talk about smart home devices and home systems. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jana. Thank you all for being here. So I want to start off, we just heard some great conversations about kind of Matter and the move towards a more a system where, or a situation where kind of no matter how you acquire products, they kind of all just work together. But we also heard that, the rollout is some time away. And realistically today, most people either acquire smart home solutions standalone as a point solution at retail, or from a variety of different types of providers, or as part of a system. Certainly DIY sales, from an individual sales perspective, kind of is the leading way that most people are pulling them into the home. And I'd love to kind of go to Kevin first and then Scott to understand, what you find that really drives consumers to this DIY type of buying, and what kind of the pros and cons of that type of acquisition of smart home devices are. So Kevin, I'll talk to you first.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. A lot of people start with a simple solution, or what we call a point solution. It maybe only does one thing. A perfect example is our Yale Access solution, or August Access, depending on which brand you want, where it's a very simple solution with your phone mobile credential to operate the door lock. And people love it. It's very, very popular. It's a nice, safe starting point for a lot of folks. And then, they say, well, wow, we've automated the door lock. Maybe now we want to grow and add lighting or thermostats, and whatever meets their home experience that they want to create, and they want to automate and make a better experience for them within the home. And I was watching backstage when Michelle was doing. I like it. I'm going to call it the home and not the intelligent home anymore, but it's where all our homes are going. And so they start there. An analogy you could use almost is you buy your first home and you buy a string of Christmas lights, and it's still winter here in Colorado where I live, so I can use this. And everyone goes, that's cool in the family. So then you add more and more, and pretty soon you start adding lights to trees, and you start buying ornamented figures and stuff for the front lawn. And pretty soon you say, well, this is a lot. I need to hire a professional to maintain all this stuff. So sometimes you take that DIY solution and you grow it into where you need a professionally installed whole home automation system. Either way, that's the beauty of the integrations we can do, and that you can participate we can participate as a Yale brand or any of the Obly brands from any level there. So people start with simple, but if they enjoy it, they'll go to a more complex solution.
Yeah, we are seeing that for households that have at least one smart home device, they actually on average have many. I think the average is 8 now. Right. So for smart home owning households, they really are at that point, right, where it's getting a little complicated, a little bit more fragmented. So are you seeing that in your own business, that there's a little bit more demand for integration support?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. People usually can move very quickly if they enjoy one lock. They'll, when we started locks and integration with partners like Honeywell, it was really, about 0.8 locks per household type of thing, even from a professionally installed. Now it's well over 2 locks. So they find the benefit and the value, and they continue to grow out the experience. And I think you kind of saw that on Scott's slide too. They start with security, but they're growing out that experience into many other areas.
Right. Yeah. So let me turn to you as well, Scott, then, and talk about maybe from the flip side, what you're seeing the big pull is into the kind of the systems approach, and what types of consumers and why consumers might be going with a systems approach first, or is it later in their buying process?
Yeah. Right. So firstly, I think Kevin nailed it. I think the DIY approach is primarily for pretty non-complex systems. There are light bulbs and maybe some cameras that are fairly easy to set up and very quick. But even when consumers acquire products from us, maybe in our retail channel, like a thermostat, still more than 50% of the time, they end up engaging a pro, because when you take that old thermostat off of the wall, there's lots of wires that connect to $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 worth of gear in the basement or outside. And they realize, like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. It's not particularly hard to install a thermostat, but one little mistake and you have a contractor coming out to replace your system. So what drives the consumer to buy professionally installed systems? I would say it's pretty simple, right? My businesses are driven by, unfortunately, often catastrophe. If you're going to buy a professional security system, it's likely that somebody was robbed or burglarized, or a fire happened nearby, or you've recently been married, or you have a new family to protect, or maybe you've just purchased a new home. They're typically the main drivers of security systems. And if you look at kind of what's going on around us right now around the world, these are unusual times in the US and really in North America. And that fear factor is a little bit higher than normal. So demand for pro security is very high. When I look at HVAC, right, demand from consumers is typically driven by a couple of things. One, a failure. Your air conditioner fails when it's extremely hot. Your heater fails when it's extremely cold for extended periods of time. That drives an awful lot of sales in our industry. The second big driver is residential construction. So new homes get built. It makes up a pretty good chunk of the HVAC industry, and are two really important drivers at the consumer level. I don't believe, generally speaking, the consumers wake up and say to themselves, today is the day I'm going to go buy a smart home system. I think they have a problem in their mind that they're trying to solve. They feel unsafe in their home. They're not cool or warm when they should be. And the best way to handle those products, in my opinion, and I think it's even proven in data, is to contact an expert, the professional security dealer or the professional contractor.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you feel that as we move more towards a mass market type customer, that preferences change at all. So on one hand, the tech innovators and tech adopters, find perhaps installing and playing with the gadgets, easier, or maybe even a hobby, right? And something that they like to do. Whereas a more mass market type customer might need more support. At the same time, a more mass market consumer might not have the same means, as other types of early buyers, right? And will they be more expensive, type solutions to go a pro way? Are you seeing anything kind of from the Resideo lens that points to what the future looks like as the buyer changes?
Yeah, so I listen, I will concede and just look at data, concede that DIY has carved out a nice space in the marketplace, whether that's locks or lights or cameras, and even in some cases thermostats. However, the advent over the last 5 or 6 years of a larger and larger DIY market, based on all of our industry data, doesn't indicate that it's done anything to impact the professional side of the house. And I think, again, at least in the markets where I play, I'm a little older than most on the panel here, and I'd say for the rest of my career, I don't think air conditioning and heating of your home is going to become DIY. These are complex, require high skill sets. I don't expect that to become DIY. I just don't. I think there's some cool innovations that in fact we're involved with that might change the thermostat experience in the home or the heating and cooling experience. But I think the most important piece of the smart home isn't the sensor. It's not the thermostat. It's not the motion detector. It's the thing that's probably hidden behind the wall that controls your home environment. And today, that home environment, unlike any other part of your world, at work you're connected, when you're traveling you're fully connected, when you're in your car you're fully connected, but at home, we manage the home via catastrophe. We wait for the water heater to burst before we replace it. We wait for the air conditioner to break before we replace it. And I think it requires pros to, number one, fix those things, and number two, to deploy new technologies like Resideo has that monitors and doesn't wait for the catastrophe but prevents the catastrophe. So again, I might be a little bit old school. I don't think the buying decision will always be a DIY market. I have a lawnmower, but I don't cut my own grass. So there's always going to be a DIY market. But I do think when it truly matters and it becomes more complex, and when things like Matter come to play and these things all have to be integrated, I think the buyer is likely going to say, I need a professional to help me.
Yep. Well, let me turn to Yana here. I'd love to get your input on what makes for a great end user experience, right? Kind of regardless of how you get the devices in, but certainly, especially if you're buying in a DIY type manner, right? And buying different point solutions that may or may not work together. How do we ensure that what makes for a great user experience and kind of product design?
Yeah, I think one piece that we've seen a lot across lots and lots of different connected experiences have to do with users' ability to connect the device, right? If you're not able to connect the device, you're really not getting to the true value of this being a connected device. And so I think we've seen a lot of pieces to improving the smooth setup of the smart home experience, just making it easy to connect the hardware in the first place. And that can be things like minimizing the number of steps users need to take to connect the product, keeping instructions in the application concise, just being able to show one button at each step. There's lots of usability research that suggests that multiple options confuse users, and that's a great opportunity to lose a customer who could otherwise have successfully connected the product. Restricting the flow to connecting one device. There's lots and lots of connection flows out there that require you to set up multiple things, whereas most consumers will, by and large, purchase one device, right? And they need to get that one device connected and start getting value out of that. I would say similarly, being able to get value out of the device before you have to start doing all kinds of configuration. That's another piece of improvement that we've seen a lot of connected devices can do. So those are just a few examples, but I think the smooth setup of the product and the smooth connection is something that most connected hardware can use some help with, and we've seen a lot of improvements in the industry as well.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about what you said right at the end there about getting value out of it before having to go through a bunch of configuration. You know, what do you mean there, and what are you kind of coaching some of your clients in product design about what that experience should be like?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of there's a lot of pieces around providing essentially a standard experience where users can start enjoying a product being on a certain schedule before actually setting up their own schedule, right? We know that most people wake up in the morning. Before 2020, most people would go to work and come back from work, and most people will go to bed at night, right? That's a standard schedule, a standard routine that most connected hardware could be on by default, so that you're not requiring people to say, okay, I want to have this very specific time of day when I want my device to do something. There's certain assumptions that can be made about users at large so that they can start enjoying the product, and then have them reconfigure it to their own preferences.
Got it. Thank you so much. So that really aligns a little bit with something that we've tested recently on user experience, kind of asking folks whether they'd rather have smart products where you essentially set it and forget it, right? There's a lot of automation built in and understands me. I don't even have to think about this product. Or would you prefer to have all the customization options, feel like an expert, right? Like have really personalized control, and it's almost 50-50. So we have two huge groups of buckets that want very different control experiences. And so I think what you're talking about is a smart way to perhaps design for the inevitability that you're going to have both product users that want both experiences.
Absolutely. And I think, that 50-50, that the 50 that wants to have the really nitty-gritty configuration, which is I am in that group. I am a power user. I have lots of connected devices in my home. Our group is going to be shrinking as more and more people start getting connected devices. The mainstream starts getting more connected devices. So there's that, as you're designing the product for the mainstream user that tends to have one connected device and need to start figuring out how to use that product, it's going to be even more important to have a lot of pre-configured experiences while still allowing us power users to tinker with what we purchase, because we're quite loud.
Right. Great. Well, Kenneth, tell us a little bit about, go ahead, Scott. Did you want to jump in real quick?
I was just going to say, Jana, I strongly agree with what you've just said, but I also have maybe a contrarian opinion, even though I agree, and that is the product itself. The consumer hires a piece of hardware that they put in their home, and it better do the job really well. So I'm from the camp, Jennifer, that if you're using your app to control your thermostat or going to your thermostat at all, then the thermostat's not doing its job, right? You should be comfortable without having to interface with it. You should be comfortable with your security system without having to interface with it. It should react to how you live. And the app experience is critically important, but if you're chilly and you're on your couch and you thought you'd be warm and you have to do something about it, even if the app is perfect, it's a bad experience. So it's a mix of hardware and software, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I also wonder how that might change for different product types. So I'm with you that my thermostat should be smart enough to do what it needs to do. And I am definitely one of the people who don't interact with my thermostat at all unless it is doing the wrong thing and I'm hot or cold, right? Lighting, you might interact with much more frequently. Or maybe you don't want to because you want it to sense that you're in the room and it goes on and off. But there's entertainment use cases, there's health use cases, right? So from the SingLED, perspective, Kenneth, we see smart lighting and light bulbs in particular, of course, is one of the most common devices that are purchased just on their own, right? As opposed to part of a system. But then in the lighting category, you've got switches and outlets and lighting systems that really do require, in many cases, a pro. Tell us a little bit about, maybe your process of getting products into the home and how people are setting them up and getting them kind of connected into the wider ecosystem.
Well, there's two things related to that. There's two things that both
you, Jennifer, and Jana said a few minutes ago, and that's really about the setup experience. And I think you said, Jennifer, like 50% of people just want some value quickly, and then just want the easy setup, and then the other 50% want to get into the nitty gritty, like Jana and myself and the rest of us on the panel. And so it's so important to initially to give that user that value, as you guys said, right away. Otherwise, you lose them and you end up with a product return, which would be in our case, at a Best Buy store or an Amazon return. Nobody wants that. And so one of the things that we've done is, we all want interoperability. We all want to work with HomeKit, with Alexa, with Google, but we've taken it a step further and really partnered with a lot of these third-party integrations to make the user experience not just work, but be super, super easy. So for example, that setup process, if you buy some of our Alexa Simple Setup products on Amazon and you have an Alexa device in your home, Amazon knows that. And we've worked with them to have a certain subset of our products be Alexa Simple Setup. So if you order the light bulb, it comes in the mail, you take it out of the box, and as soon as you energize that light bulb, your Alexa knows what light bulb came. It knows the MAC address, everything. And it says, hey, we detected your new light bulb. Would you like to set it up? And just with your voice, it's already set up. It connects to your Wi-Fi already, because through the Amazon ecosystem and your Alexa device, it already knows your Wi-Fi password. Now it's a little creepy for some people, but it's already all out there anyways, honestly. And if you've got an Alexa device, and it's set up, so we get that first 50% right away. You didn't have to touch a button, do anything on your phone, and your light bulb is set up, or whatever lighting device or smart plug or whatever is already set up. And then for us power users, we can get into the nitty gritty. We can set up our scheduling, set up our sensors, et cetera, to make a truly integrated smart home.
Yeah, I really do think that's a great example of how we all want it to work, right? I mean, that sounds like an actually delightful experience compared to what I think the expectation is when you get a device home that is at this point still going to be hard, and is this going to take in the afternoon? Hopefully not. Am I going to have to talk to support people, right? So thanks very much for sharing that example. And also it talks a little bit to the issue of smart products coming home and maybe the smarts not even being set up, right? So just because devices come with connectivity doesn't necessarily mean they're ever configured. This happens in smart appliances, for example, where the core purpose of the appliance, it washes your dishes, it washes your clothes, happens regardless of whether or not you ever set up the smarts. So taking that job of configuration off of the user sounds like where we're going.
May I make a comment? You have time?
Please.
Yeah, agreed with everything the panelists said. But back to I want to back us up a little farther in the user experience. I think it really starts at the point of purchase, or at least I know we do it at ASA Abloy. And this is where things like matter, and we'll talk more about that, really I think will come into play. Having a ubiquitous application, so when you buy something, it works. A lot of our calls, and I'm sure it's the same with Kenneth, is if I buy this, is it going to work with my other 3 devices? So if I buy that lock, is it going to work with my SmartThings hub or my Honeywell security system? And the consumer, especially in a COVID world, where we're doing a lot more stuff remotely, we're not in the store, we aren't talking to hopefully a blue shirt or subject matter expert, and sometimes you can't even find them. So it's a gamble. And the more expensive the product, you get into complex lighting, you get into complex locks. That's you want that to be a great experience. They buy it, and yes, they took a little gamble, but they come home, they made an intelligent choice, and it does work. And they don't have to worry about it, because if not, it's to where Kenneth said, now you're back to the return process. So now the experience has already gone south, and I haven't even got it set up. And you're right. And once it's set up, to Scott's point, hopefully, you don't have to. If everything's worked the way you want, you won't have to have a lot of interaction with the app unless you want to make a change. When you're coming back from the airport, you want to heat the house up because adjust the security system because you got guests showing up before you can get there, type of thing. But that experience really starts with, I think I want to buy this and add it to my system. And we've got to start there with making that a great experience for the consumer.
Kevin, I'll do a quick plug to Asa Abloy. I bought an August smart lock probably a year and a half ago. Took a lot of research to make sure it integrated with my system, with how I wanted it to work. It was the perfect thing. It worked with my existing lock, and then integrated into my HomeKit situation. I wanted to walk around the outside of my house, stick my Apple Watch up and say, unlock the basement door. Boom, it's done. So that integration is seamless. I've got, of course, the August application, the August app on my phone to do detailed stuff for the initial setup. But everyday use, I just want it to integrate into my normal smart home, which it does that. So that's a good example right there in your products.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you're talking about too is this concept of certification, right? And the fact that Matter would have a mark, right? But of course, Zigbee and Z-Wave also have marks. But sure, educating the consumer as to what those marks mean, that when they're going to purchase, right? That especially if it's your first product into the home, you might not even know that that's something that's going to matter to you later down the smart home journey, right? That you're going to want a product that plays well with others, which talks a little bit about one thing I wanted to get into was the importance of different channels and the experience of selling products and designing products for different channels. And we can start with retail a little bit, and whether or not you feel like at retail, whether it's online or in store, that the education pieces are there to help consumers, make good buying decisions, and then also the sales staff. So again, I see this a little bit more in appliances, and but I would love to understand the other products too. What are the maybe great examples or challenges that you see in selling through retail right now? And then I'd love to come also to Scott to understand HVAC a little bit and security a little bit more. But maybe, Kevin, I can start with you there on selling kind of locks at retail.
Sure. Thank you. Direct to consumer is still our largest channel in North America for both the Yale and August brands combined. But there is certainly growth in other markets. But to stay on the consumer direct channel, packaging is key. And for anyone who has or is in the direct consumer market, it's worth, if you haven't ever experienced or done VOC or stood in an aisle and watched people assess your product against competition and the key things they look at, it's an eye opener. What is the value? I was in a Home Depot one day and I was listening to a couple, and one of the decision factors they were going to make on which door lock to buy was which one weighed more. Would have never thought of that.
That means
nor does it really have any bearing. Yeah, right. But you find out, and you only have so long, as we all know, in time in front of a consumer to make a decision. So packaging is key. Simplicity, again, that they see those key marks that let them know that, this is going to do what they want. It's going to work with or integrate with the other products they may have already purchased or are planning to purchase. Those are, fundamental things for that D2C market. But when it comes to integrated products, there's significant growth in many of the pro channels. Security has always been a great double-digit growth market for us as the systems bring in more automation. People want those products that bring that extra value to their purchase and their overall system. Another really big growth market we see is MDU, and it's interesting there in that, if you think about people that work in MDU, some live in MDU space, some might live in single family, but what's changed over the last 10 years is, maybe we all remember back, you got to college, you couldn't afford to buy a house, so you got an apartment. That was, at that point, a financial decision. Now it's more of a lifestyle. We all know urban renewal is huge. People are buying condos or apartments because that's the lifestyle they want, and they don't want starter places. They want very high-end places with high-end amenities, and that includes automation, that includes locking systems and lighting, et cetera, et cetera. So those channels have become a significant growth opportunity. And again, then how you market to them or the product features may be slightly different, but you're creating a experience that the consumer is looking for, irrelevant if they own or they're renting MDU or single family.
Yeah, definitely. Our research supports that there's huge growth in MDU, right? And very much interest both from the resident perspective, who's coming to expect smart tech in their units, but also the property managers and owners.
Absolutely, because this is now one of their differentiators. The old joke, 30 years ago is I rented at property X because they had cable and property Y didn't have HBO. I should even I'll update myself. Go back, they called it HBO. Well, now having those intelligent thermostats and you have a door lock where you can invite your own guest or give them access for a period of time. Those are the big differentiators, types of things that MDUs are now using. And just having a new appliance alone is not enough to sway that customer to stay or to move to your facility.
Mm-hmm. Well, Scott, let me turn to you. Obviously, security has been one of the most important channels for smart home tech since its kind of birth, right? And so I think that the dealers are starting to certainly see that opportunity. How about on the HVAC side? Certainly, the smart thermostat is the product that's near and dear to their heart. Are they seeing more opportunity to even serve a bigger role in the connected home?
Yes, so absolutely. So I've always said that security was in the smart home before we were calling it the smart home, right? They've been selling connected solutions to homeowners, for many decades. Their initial apps were released, and just shortly the app store was released to control those systems remotely. So I've always said security dealers kind of lead this space, and will likely maintain leading this space. The HVAC side was a little slower in adopting it because really the play there is primarily, sensing. It's thermostats, maybe IAQ, PM 2.5 type sensing devices. But if I was to just look at the numbers, publicly available numbers for the industry, the connected or smart thermostat revenue growth is significantly high, where non-connected, kind of early prediction of most companies in the space, is essentially flat. So high smart sales of connected thermostats growing at significant rates in the marketplace, and flat non-connected, which suggests that we're in this period of a one-time S curve where there's high acceleration until most homes have them. So, and there are significantly new opportunities being presented to contractors and out to consumers, because that thermostat can do other things beyond just controlling temperature. It can enroll you in energy efficiency programs with your utility and create a service model for both the contractor and the utility provider, or the consumer, I should say. It can monitor your HVAC system and the health of that system. And while it won't provide 100% accuracy on failure modes, it can tell you something's wrong. And if you take it one step further and install one of our LifeWare devices, relatively new to the marketplace, LifeWare connects to the power line that powers your large equipment in your home, and it can see if the igniter on your furnace is dirty. It can tell if your exhaust fan isn't working properly and send a signal back to the contractor, and effectively say, hey, a service call needs to be made there, to fix that before it causes a catastrophic failure. So we're working towards, and I think contractors are seeing this very plainly now, a transformational effort of how contractors approach their customers, where a service agreement, which might be $300 a year and assures a couple of visits a year, doesn't actually monitor anything during the year, but instead make a service agreement a 24/7 monitoring service that they can see what's happening with your system and preemptively fix an issue before it becomes a problem. And I think I truly believe that's transformative to the industry. And if I took it up one more level, it's just we're trying to redefine, what security and peace of mind is. Monitoring the health of an HVAC system is not significantly different than monitoring a motion detector, or a water leak detector, or a camera. It's monitoring and sending signals to monitoring centers. Maybe it's a contractor, maybe it's a alarm central station, so that they can react. Maybe not dispatch the police or fire, but dispatch a plumber if there's a leak, or an HVAC contractor with the right tech and the right replacement product on their truck to get it fixed the first time. I think this space is in the early stages of 3-4 years now, going through a significant transformation in how they offer services to homeowners. And I believe, with little less evidence than other things, that security space and the HVAC space, there's a tremendous opportunity for partnership between those two players. These technologies are very different, and if we can bring them together, we can do some really cool things for the consumer. And I think the place where they're going to come together first, Kevin was just talking about it. We already see it happening in MDUs every day. I see it. I think Kevin sees it as well. But we also see it in residential new construction, where the smart home is becoming more and more the standard versus the upgrade. And the smart home and residential new construction, I think of it as a retail location. People go into those homes, model homes, they see what's happening, they go back and they install it in their existing home. So I think these service models, these connected, I used to love saying smart home. I just think it's your home now, right? I don't call my car my smart car. I have a Jeep. It's got cameras and sensors all over it. I don't know when or why it happened. I don't have to use a key anymore. Like, all of the things that a smart home should be, or that your home should be, have already taken place in the automotive industry. The reason is because, Ford or Jeep or whatever controls the development of the car. Well, the builder controls the development of, 1.2 million new homes per year, another 500,000 or so multifamily properties. I think that's where it starts and has started. And I think that drives existing homes as well. So I think the pro is here to stay. No surprise to anybody that knows me. My whole life has been in the pro space. But yeah, I think they bring significant value, particularly as these systems become more standardized and more complex.
Yeah, certainly. I think a lot of opportunity for the channel players to lean into what is already a service model essentially for them and expand that and drive new revenue. In fact, one of the earlier speakers on the earlier panel mentioned, where we're kind of standing on the shoulders of these early adopters, and it's great that we've proved out the tech and now we have to solve problems, and being able to proactively understand if there's a problem with the HVAC in the middle of the summer and have the parts on the truck turns into this delightful experience of like how home services should work, right? And it's just bringing all that tech together to that kind of magical new way of offering service. And it's not about the smart tech necessarily in the home. It's that you got things fixed easily and quickly, right?
That's right.
So I'm going to turn actually to our polling questions. So if you haven't had a chance to answer the final 2 polling questions on the polling tab, go ahead and get your answers in there. I want to turn a little bit to like the nuts and bolts of selling product, right? So as I mentioned, a lot of the buyers today are adding more devices into their home. At the same time, we do see a slow and steady uptick every year of the number of households that do have something in their household that we consider a core smart home product. So slow but steady expansion of households, and then obviously new products being added in. At this kind of point in the market in 2022, love to come to you kind of to understand, what you find to be some of the most effective merchandising approaches, right? Like, how do you get someone who's casually looking to make that purchase? Like, what's that trigger? What moves them?
Well, we sell in a lot of different avenues, brick and mortar stores, retail settings, as well as online. So we use physical displays, digital platforms, store pages, our own website, PDPs on Amazon, banner ads, social media, videos, blog posts. I mean, it's almost endless these days what you need to do to attract your customers, wherever you may find them. It's no longer just at the store, but we have to determine the messaging in each of those platforms. Sometimes, what images we use. We have to research market trends, and we have to relate to our audience, to our potential customers, through relevant use cases. We rely heavily on use cases to have a customer come up and either in the store or online and be like, oh, yes, that's the solution I need for that problem in my house. Let me look up this Singlad company and see what they're all about. And there's also a fine line between educating the power users and capturing their attention versus the people that are totally new to it and know nothing or are afraid of jumping into it. So we've got to effectively communicate all those things in different ways and in different places. So it's a balancing act. How do we we can attract someone to smart lighting, but we also have to give them the confirmation that we are a safe person to buy into as far as their ecosystem. That will be easier as the Matter standards roll out, and will be a big part of that as well on our new products. But how have we been doing that? So basically, like if you walk up into a display at a store and you say Singlad, you may or may not have heard of Singlad before. So very quickly we have to communicate. We're a legitimate company. We've got quality, credibility. We've been around and we've been in smart lighting specifically for 10 years, as I mentioned earlier, and we win awards. We're recognized for this. So, having the CES logo where you're allowed to have it for CES Innovation Awards, things like that. We also build credibility with our partnerships. I know when I'm shopping for smart home products specifically, I'm looking for those Apple HomeKit logos, Alexa logos, et cetera, to make sure that it's going to work with the ecosystem I have. And that gives customers a lot of confidence in making that purchase decision that, who mentioned smart homes are like our cars. It's kind of behind the times or coming after the innovations in cars. I think it was you, Scott. I kind of look at that the same way as well. Like GPSs, built-in GPSs in cars. I mean, notoriously terrible. They've always been terrible. They're still pretty bad, although they've come a long way. But I want that integration with my phone. The way I work and the way 80 to 90% of drivers work is they use it on their phone. And so they want their phone to show up on that screen. They want to integrate into the car system that way. And so we kind of have to do the same thing. And that gives the customers the extra, it puts their minds at ease when they're buying into our system, because they really are buying into systems. It's not just buying one light bulb. It's they want it to integrate into everything. So we've got to communicate all of this in a very short amount of time in a lot of different ways. And then finally, we've got to show them that we're flexible. And this goes back to integrations. We do the Zigbee, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth mesh, but then we're overwhelming them at this point because I've heard of Wi-Fi, I've heard of Bluetooth, I don't know what Zigbee is. So then we can capture Wi-Fi. Okay, they're familiar with that. We can work with their solution and work on HomeKit. So it's so much information that you've got to really be careful and scale back on to make sure you just don't completely overwhelm people like I kind of just did.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. The poll question, the options we gave people to answer, and we said, how are you looking to move more product into consumers' homes? And we gave them options of sales and discounts, industry partnerships like insurance, energy, security, HVAC, right? Bundles with other products. So we sometimes see light bulbs, smart plugs, different products being kind of bundled together in an offering. Product placement and just others. And the number one by far, 63% said industry partnerships. So they're really trying to expand, right? Either channels, or I think you actually also mentioned it, Kenneth, right? Like the industry partnerships and showing who you work with and where you are in the ecosystem.
Yeah, sales discounts. I mean, I know when I'm shopping, especially on Amazon, when I see the click the little box for $10 off, oh, that's awesome. It's not even a percentage, it's $10. That means something to me, and don't even have to do any math. And so I love that. So that's a big one for us, at least on Amazon. And then bundles, you mentioned that bundles is a very big deal with us, especially with our Amazon Alexa partnership. We work a lot with them behind the scenes on various things. They're one of our close partners on Matter, but on bundles with Amazon Alexa devices. Smart speakers are where, I don't know the exact statistics, but that's how a lot of people or most people integrate with their smart home. It's the ease of day-to-day versus getting on your phone and doing things. And so that's how we get a lot of people started on our platform, is they get a free bulb with an Amazon Echo, even an Echo Dot, something that's easy to purchase, cheap. They just needed an extra dot in their bedroom or something like that. And then they're in the SingLED ecosystem. That's when they come back for more. And oh, by the way, it comes prepared. So they literally do nothing when they get the bundle. And so that's a positive experience right out of the bat. And then they want to come back for more. So all of that is pre-work that's done, months and months and months ahead of time to help keep that customer coming back.
Awesome. We have just about 5 minutes left. I wanted to come back to Jan and then Kevin. Coming back to this idea we heard a lot about already today about as interoperability, as Matter rolls out and perhaps interoperability and that initial configuration pain and job that we put on a consumer maybe goes away, just getting connectivity to work is no longer a differentiator, right? You really need to differentiate on features, on, that killer application, that experience. So there's this constant push for that, right? And finding that edge and finding that thing that sets you apart. So Jana, can you speak at all to how you think that, product development is going to kind of change, or what people should be looking to do to make sure that they're able to offer that going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my key focus, over the years has been on integrations between lots and lots of different connected hardware. I think, to echo Michelle's reference to accessibility in her keynote earlier, in the hope that we can call the smart home just the home in 2030. We continue focusing on making existing features as usable as possible so that everyone can use them. And I do think that that's, given the state of the connected home industry, I do believe that provides the greatest differentiators. If the features you have with your product are actually usable by your entire household, that's when you can continue building on that and provide, more advanced features, integrations on top of that, and then making sure that those features are usable by everyone, right? It can't just be, your techie head of the household. It needs to be everyone. I think that's going to be the primary differentiator for products going forward.
Yeah, I love that point. And I think also Michelle mentioned, making the products more accessible, right? And some of what you're talking about really plays in there. When we have an older consumer, using products, making it easy for them, as well, for everybody to use it. And, older generations have amazing purchasing power too, right? And so many times products are designed for the younger kind of early adopter crowd. So yeah, that's great. Kevin, how about you, from Assa Abloy's perspective and product development? If smart is assumed going forward, right, and most products become smart, the smart isn't the differentiator. What is?
Well, again, I think there are features, having a list of features or a feature available that your consumers can use, because what we found over the years is, everyone has a preference of how they might, for example, use a door lock, what they want to be the credential, be it their phone, keypad, a voice assistant, what have you. So to make those features come alive, though, is really the key, is that integration back to. And globally, we have over 80 integration partners, and we're very proud of that. We're the most integrated lock portfolio around the globe. So that is key, to be able to say yes. And that's where, again, back to where Matter fits in, is the that ability to hopefully have even a more ubiquitous opportunity for integration. So to Kenneth's bulbs, Scott's HVAC system or security, again, it's an even easier decision for the consumer to say, yeah, I know those will work together. I really like that Yale brand of door lock, but I want to make sure it's going to work with the single lid bulbs or a Honeywell security system, and I don't want to have to worry about it. Those are key, things that differentiate from it's integration, but it really is a feature if you think about it, that it's seamless. Another one we haven't touched on today, but I think is very important, is security. When you're a premium brand, and I know Scott knows this, it's an expectation that you have secure products. They're not buying something with your brand that is going to be harmful or cause harm in their home, or a hacker to get in. So there's benchmarks we constantly have to make, and as premium brands, we make it a priority that we're always on top of those things. And even though the consumer they only think about that in the back of their mind, it's an expectation, a given, because I'm buying this premium brand. You cannot forgo not stepping up to that bar and making sure that you're always on top of it.
Awesome. Well, that unfortunately is going to have to be the last word. Thank you all so much. Kenneth, Scott, Kevin, and Yana, thank you very much for your leadership in the industry and for your insights today.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. I want to invite everyone to attend our next session, which is focusing on the home network. And that'll be April 14th of this year, starting at 11 o'clock. We also are back in person with Connections later in May, and the call for papers, meaning the call for speaking, is open. So if you are interested in speaking at Connections, please do go to our website and submit that form so our speaker committee can consider you as a speaker for the Connections conference in May. Also, we are back with our Smart Energy Summit in person, actually. So I know a lot of folks who are part of the Connections community also are very interested in watching what's happening in the energy space in the residential markets, from solar, storage, EV, smart thermostat, HVAC, right? We bring together both smart home and the utilities and energy providers together to really talk about, again, the state of the market, where we can move forward, and to make those connections. So we will be in person in just a few weeks. So February 28th, March 1st, March 2nd in Frisco, in the Dallas area here in Texas, at the I think it's called the Dallas Star. You football fans will know that, where the Cowboys practice facility is. So very excited to be back in person and engaging with the energy ecosystem. We do have, I think, a few open speaking spots left. So if you're interested in joining us at Smart Energy Summit and want to speak, please do quickly fill out that form for consideration, as we are confirming our remaining spots for Smart Energy Summit. And of course, as always, if you're interested in research and speaking and sponsorship, please just reach out to our team, and happy to chat with you. So thank you again very much. Thank you to all of our speakers today for your insights, and look forward to seeing you all, hopefully in person this year, but also at our virtual events throughout the year. Thank you.